starting inviting all our speakers and our moderator. So here, firstly, I'd like to invite on stage for this panel discussion our moderator, Mr. Aditya Verma, Vice President Procurement, Dorf Ketal Chemicals India Private Limited. I request the sound team to please give mics to our moderator and our speaker. Welcome, sir. And can we have this screen? Now I'd like to introduce for the session. Let's welcome Mr. Sudipto Basu, Head SEM and Procurement, Virbac Animal Health India Private Limited. Now let's welcome our next speaker, Mr. Mahendra Patil, Head Purchasing for Indirect Materials and Services, IN Henkel. Let's welcome Ms. Garima Chadha, Indirect Sourcing Head, KOHLER India Corporation Private Limited. Why no one is giving a round of applause when anyone is coming on stage? Now let's welcome our next speaker, Mr. Aurobindo Mishra, General Manager, Supply Chain Management, JSW Cement Limited. Now let's welcome Mr. Vikram Singh Bopche, Head Purchase, Hafele India Private Limited. Now let's welcome our next speaker, Mr. Pravin Bagal, Functional Head Procurement, Hindustan Platinum. Now let's welcome Dr. Subhash, Head Purchase and SCM, WAMGROUP S.p.A. Now let's welcome Mr. Kapil Agrawal, Head Materials, BU Varroc. And last but not the least, Mr. Amit Sahni, General Manager, Purchase, Asian Paints Limited. I hope everybody has their mics and we are good to go. So let us our other speakers also join, and then I'll give it over to our moderator. Everybody, do participate. And if we have time, we'll give one person an opportunity to ask a question, only if we have time. Welcome, everybody. And now I'd like to give it over to our moderator, Mr. Aditya Verma. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And in fact, the topic we have today is basically capturing the greater value through deeper supplier collaboration. And somewhat the previous panel has already spoke about collaboration. So that's the good thing, that some basis and foundation has been already made to ignite your thoughts, so that by the end of our discussion, you guys can ask more questions. But let me touch base this topic more from a historical perspective. Let's say, I would say that this collaboration word is in our DNA. Why I say so, maybe if any of you have ever read our first Veda, Rig Veda. Rig Veda, first verse, it talks about exchange. And the last verse, that talks about leaving out the rivalry and focusing on achieving together. So if I collaborate both these words, exchange and working together, that is nothing but talking about a collaboration. So I'm glad that we have an eminent panelist here on this particular dais to talk about this subject, and probably I could see with the faces and the gray hair, maybe more than 200 years of experience, collective experience sitting on this dais to discuss. And More than that, the audience coming from a very diverse background. And I would say that making it more interactive, I would again use a shloka from Atharva Ved, which says, Ano bhadrai kritva yantu vishwata, which means let the knowledge flow from all directions. So it should not come from this panel, should come from that side as well. So going to the topic we have, let me put it this way. Irrespective of the business we do, we only deal with two factors. Either we deal with the customer or we deal with the supplier. Whatever we do, either we do for the customer or we do with the supplier. And that's why there was a saying in the past that if you want to do something, let's say achieve, listen to your customer. If you are not listening to your customer, you will be missing out major thing in the approaching to the market or any other product differentiation, etc. Same way in the procurement world, we say, if you are not working closely with the supplier, you will be missing a very critical path to grow your business. And that's, I would say, by embracing collaboration as a strategic imperative, we somehow harness this, your collective intelligence, knowledge, know-how, efficiency, and eventually work on the sustainable growth path. And probably with the set of panelists we have today coming from a different industry, so I'm sure with their own experience and knowledge, we will be able to explore many new dimensions which will help us in identifying our complexity, our problems, and look into the resolving those. So maybe not taking much of a time on that context, let me start. And fortunately, we have, let's say, almost touching base on FMCG, electronics, automotive, all kind of industry today. So many of the words which I'll be using, we might have used in the previous some discussion, but end of the day is a perspective which matters and how you handle those things. So let me start, Amit, from you. Amit coming from paint industry, Asian Paints, and I think he will bring around a lot of such complexity we see in a FMCG world. So Amit, today when we live actually in a VUCA world and handle those all kind of volatility, uncertainty, complexity or ambiguity, how do you see this deeper supplier collaboration we are talking about can drive a greater value for the organization?
Yeah, so thanks Aditya. And it's a very pertinent question, and essentially it means how do we react to this? And I think the key thing is we react. We only bring up things that are going to give us instant redressal of the challenges and at the same time sense of achievement for ourselves. But are we really building that resilience that we've been talking since morning? So if you talk about COVID, one of the things that everyone's talked about, and I think somewhere in this day it also was broached upon by one of the panelists. So everyone's talking about the China One policy strategy, right? And I'm sure all of us would have had a conversation around that in our companies. But we seem to be ignoring the fact of the kind of skewness on capacities that they have, for example. I think one of the panelists, and I really resonate with him earlier on, is that you need to learn to work with them. That's something that we also have done more recently at Asian Paints. But my point is, the learnings that we seem to say that we have from this VUCA world and making us resilient may not be relevant tomorrow, because tomorrow's VUCA situation is going to be very different. COVID was just that everybody's VUCA came together, right? So in this thing, rather than talk more about the problems or challenges, I thought today, that's been spoken about. So let's look at the positive side of this VUCA. There is always a positive twist to it. And that is in terms of an opportunity that it poses. And if rather than give some gyan around it, let me take an example of what happened in the paint industry. So come COVID, we had this entire thing, just for a brief background, the paints industry, about 70% of it is controlled by 6 to 7 organized players, which is now growing. And you'll see the growth, more numbers coming in recent months. And the remaining 30%, you have 2,000 paint companies, which are SMEs, some good SMEs, some unorganized, regional players, just about operating in some cities and certain product segments. That 30% set could not stand on its feet just after the first lockdown was abolished and the industry started picking up. So a lot of business came to the organized players, and we guys have grown 30% in that period. So that's the opportunity the COVID brought to us. Now, how did we leverage on this? I think the only way we leveraged on this was relying on the strengths and on the relationships that we had on our business partners. It can't be done without yourself, and this collaboration, it cuts across, not just on technology terms, collaborating to create new products. It also boils down to how well you have collaborated on your logistics. For example, we have a thing where with a large multinational chemical supplier to us, who for them I'm a customer, but at the same time we share resources like a shore tank in one of the ports when we import materials together. So that's something which is not built today. As has been said, it's a journey and it's been going on. So you have this collaboration piece anyways happening, which we leveraged on, and it's across the value chain. And sir, if you would allow me, I would also like to have, it's an age and day where we need to identify with at least 3 acronyms. So I'll get to that. One is, to survive, we all have been saying that you need to innovate. But do we innovate ourselves, or we do innovate with partners? And the obvious answer is with partners, because it gives you the velocity, it gives you access to technology, which on your own you would have ultimately discovered, but the bus would have passed. Absolutely. And to do that, you then need to collaborate, right? And in all this, the basic 2 questions: what do you innovate on, and whom do you collaborate with? So that any procurement professional, or for that matter any company today, needs to be good at anticipating. So you need to anticipate, build scenarios, and see how you would kind of act in that scenarios. So this whole thing is like, collaborate, you innovate, and at the same time you are also anticipating what's going to happen in the future. And it's a cycle. Easy way to remember is CIA. And they're quite nosy, get into other businesses, they collaborate, they separate, they do a lot. We need to act just like them, perhaps. And if we were to see, while thinking, I wasn't really prepared for this, but one thought that came through the other panel discussions about, we talked about we need to collaborate, but how do you do this? I think somebody asked that question as to how do we do it at scale, how do we do it sustainably? So one of the things that I believe is, amongst a lot of things that need to fall in place, 3 things are important. One is you need sponsorship from the CEO and the board. Otherwise, you can talk about collaboration and nothing's going to happen in the organization. No cultural shift would happen till you have their blessings. The other is, how do we put a structure in place to take this ahead and keep it sustainable? And the third is you build that relationship across. And somebody had shared that data at about 4 to 6 years is the kind of tenure of a professional in procurement roles. At Asian Paints, we have a 3-year itch. Every 3 years, we change roles. So we need to manage the relationship. So it's an organization to organization relations that needs to get built. Because people will come, people will go on either side. So looking at that, way back in 2012, that was my role then, we created a new function and we let go of sourcing and we called it joint value creation.
Okay.
So inherently it means that I have to partner with my suppliers, identify opportunities and create value for either side. So you have to live your name here. we are no longer sourcing. We are joint value creation. And that's the thing which has sustained us and created new partnerships across all these technology, new products, logistics. So I think you have to look at more long term and look at the resilience part more rather than have these reactionary things.
Yeah, very well said. I think resilience or your way of handling together in a very surgical way at times.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Making sure that what you want to achieve, you're getting there. Thanks, Amit, for that. Let me move to the different industry now, Vikram, and mainly on the consumer durable fittings, etc. So in today's, as Amit also endorsed, that we are living in the series of disruptions, and which has redefined our value proposition for the right source. So how do you see good supplier diversity program can add value to the organization?
Thanks, Aditya. Under the topic of deeper supplier collaboration and talking about supplier diversity program, so I would classify it under the risk management part of the supplier collaboration, or in our collaboration with supplier, how do you manage the risk? And I would start with COVID, which is now a favorite topic for all supply chain discussions, because most of the things that we are discussing today have been like opened because of we went through that thing. So COVID brought into focus this supplier diversification thing more into focus, and it brought into forefront of all supply chain organizations. And everybody is discussing, so how do we manage it? It's not that it has not been managed earlier or these disruptions were not happening earlier, but it has brought a very high focus because, as Amit also said, everybody went through this thing. So now it is more into discussion. And disruption could be because of maybe geopolitical issues, natural catastrophes, wars, epidemics, or change in regulatory framework as well. If we see of any live examples, so like US-China trade tensions, Ukraine war, then threat perception of Taiwan, and various anticipated events which may go wrong or may happen in future, because of which everybody is working. So it reminds me of an example, as early as like there's an example of 2011, wherein there was earthquake in Japan, and most of the suppliers of Toyota got affected because of that, and Toyota's factory, their production was impacted for about 6 months. So they went back to drawing table, their management took note of it, and then they looked at it, and then they found out this thing of supplier diversification or bringing it more closer, or various things that we are also thinking, like most of the organizations are thinking post-COVID. And because of which then, like Japan is prone to earthquakes, everybody knows. And when a similar event happened in 2016, so again Toyota factory got impacted, but they were back to normalcy within 2 weeks. So that's how they managed it. And one good thing, as I discussed, it came out supplier diversity, but not all organizations are focusing on this. Increasing buffer stock or safety stock is first resort to tackle any disruption or when vulnerabilities in your supply chains gets exposed. So one good thing that has come out is supplier diversity and multi-sourcing, we can call it. So when we go for multi-sourcing, there are in addition to the cost that we evaluate while sourcing, we also have to understand the risk if we do not do multi-sourcing. So that is very important part now, as Amit again referring to him, he said China plus one, and people are thinking. So talking of advantages which we get by having this multi-sourcing policies, reduced reliance on a single supplier. You have increased flexibility in your ordering process. You can go to various suppliers for your orders in case, and then reduce bottlenecks in terms of if your demand has gone up and one supplier is unable to fulfill that, then you can go to some other supplier. So these are 3-4 things. And if we come to other side of it, then it enhances supplier competition, and it generates a healthy competition among suppliers, which brings best out of your suppliers, because then they are also worried that if they are not performing well, their customer has someone else also whom he can go to. So that thing brings a healthy competition among suppliers. Then the organizations also get a good negotiating or bargaining power with them. So they can have good terms and conditions, favorable ones, although it has to be two-way. Both have to win, because if both are not winning, then it's not sustainable. But yes, it gives you good contractual obligation, and then you also have access to good products and services, because you have a platter of suppliers, so to say. You have multiple suppliers in front of you who can provide you services. This strategy also comes with some, so to say, challenges. One could be like you have to deal with multiple suppliers, which sometimes may go out of control and may also increase your overhead costs on it. So these are a few of the points on the topic.
No, very well said. I think you touched the point that diversity and spreading your multiple source supply, because that recalls one of the incident when I was working for DuPont. We had a once sole source based out of Israel. So, and I think out of 12 months, 11 months, that country is in fight. So we used to sign up for inventory plan for almost 1 year or more than that.
Right.
You never know when you get a second chance to buy again.
So that reminds me of another thing when you said sole supplier. So that is also a philosophy many organizations follow, and someone said like you do have only one heart.
Yeah.
So that also is a philosophy wherein companies invest in a single supplier. But going through few of the disruptions that we discussed, it becomes more important, pertinent to have your suppliers broad base.
Okay, thanks, Vikram. So maybe let me change the industry, go to the chemical where Pravin coming from. So Pravin works for Hindustan Platinum, and probably I would like to understand, Pravin, from you. We all are working with supplier. Is just we all know that working with supplier is as important as listening to our customers. And how do you ensure that the suppliers basically help us rather than creating a hindering process or in our business growth or a kind of a sustainability goal we have? So listening to customer to working with supplier, how do you see that can be engrossed?
Yeah, Aditya, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, then it's okay. Just supply relationship management and sustainability is a journey, as everybody is agreed on that. And it's a continuous process. We have to have some strategic and supply on our board so that we can work them and foster the relationship to reap the benefit from them. I just want to give one example from the refinery. Anyone from the oil refinery can correlate. I don't think. FCC, fluidized catalytic cracking.
So we are from oil and gas industry, so we can understand your answer.
The FCC is a fluidized catalytic cracking, which we call it as heart of refinery. And it works very specifically on the performance of the supplier. Okay. And there are very minimum supply in the market. We can name it, it's 5 to 6 supply in worldwide, known as Albemarle, BASF and others, who are supplying the FCC catalyst. And many refineries, most of the refineries works on the gasoline mode or propylene mode. And it depends on the performance of the catalyst and ultimately the performance of the supplier. If this development, and now as EV is coming up, day by day the EV numbers are increasing, refiners are worried what to do with the gasoline or other things, diesel, what they are producing. So they are shifting from oil to the chemical directly, and where the FCC plays a major role, because FCC catalyst turn the whole reaction from the gasoline to the propylene, and majorly the 3 components required. One is FCC main catalyst, second is additive, and third is combustion promoter. And when we are developing the supply, we have to see their technical capability, financial capability, and how they collaborate with us. Because in FCC catalyst, they have to provide multiple sample, we have to provide our expectation to them and what is end result we require. And just I want to give an example, two examples, that we are developing the ZSM5 additive, which is maximize propylene. By adding this ZSM5, we can change the reaction towards the propylene. Previously, we were buying some ZSM5 from X vendor, and consumption was around 20 ton per day. And development is going on. We have given a target to the supplier. We have to reduce the consumption. We have to increase the propylene, and that they have worked on with our R&D team and others. And they have developed a catalyst where the consumption is reduced by 40% and propylene is increased by 10%. Because of that development, what we can achieve, one is the cost benefit. Second, indirectly we are giving a benefit to the environment because the spent catalyst reduce. That means dumping of the catalyst in the atmosphere is reduced. The impact on the atmosphere is reduced. Second, when we are importing the material, logistic cost that is get reduced, and indirectly the fuel consumption by the aircraft as well as ship vessel at reduced. That means we are decreasing the footprints of our carbon by this development. What we did, I just want to jot down the point. First, we should be clear about our expectation. Communicate our expectation and requirement from the supplier clearly at first instance. Second, evaluate the supplier based on their performance. Then ESG practices and their financial and technical capability. Third, collaborate them, provide them the whatever information they require. Build the transparency and trust. That is most important. And to build the trust, we have to have two-way communication. Involvement of top management is required to build the trust. Means we have to arrange the meeting with top management so that vendor also feel that we are interested to deal with them and they are also ready to partner with us. And last, we must have feedback with the supplier. Two-way feedback should be there. What we can do in the improvement to have the sustainable operation. They can also suggest us so that we can improve on that part, and we can also suggest them to improve their part. Then we can also provide a training and share the knowledge whenever required to enhance the sustainability. And as we all are aware that ESG is the now term used everywhere, and every industry need to improve their ratings, ESG rating.
Absolutely.
And everyone is analyzing the ESG and studies the ESG of their own factory and their value chain partners. That required scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And scope 3 is indicating clearly that the importance of the supplier to have the sustainability in the operation, which will help to grow our business. Okay. I feel while working with the supplier, we have to treat them as a partner that will definitely help us to grow and to have a sustainable operation.
Very well said. I think working on the arm's length distance with the supplier to make the relationship also sustain to achieve the sustainable goal. Yeah, that's good. Let me move to the Garima. Garima, you're coming from KOHLER, and if I'm right, is the consumer goods industry?
Yeah.
So, taking the plunge and committing to collaborative supplier engagement is not a simple activity, and it requires few critical considerations to ensure cultural synergies. So how do you see this approach progressing in future?
Am I audible? Is it better now? Yeah, so I think community, we would all agree that we have come along from vendor management to maybe supplier relationship management, which we are focusing right now. However, there are some critical considerations. Is it better? Yeah. So there are some critical considerations, I think, which we should take right now in case we want to progress on this journey. And this is how we should bring it in our buying DNA. We all already have seen throughout morning sessions that why do we need supplier collaboration? But actually, I wanted to focus on how we can bring in that collaboration and why does culture play an important role. So I'll share typically with you what I keep telling my buyers, the buyers in my team, which are the 3 R's, which we must follow. I think the first R being research. Let me give you a very small example. How many of you actually read through the mission statements of any company or any supplier? Do you actually ever do it? Or even your own organization for that matter? If you simply read through the mission statement of any company, you will come to know a great deal about the company's culture. What is the company value? What are they trying to achieve? So for example, for KOHLER, if I simply read through the mission statement, it states gracious living and bringing exceptional goods to consumers as well as exceptional goods and services to consumers. And wherever you go, even in the KOHLER Experience Center at Mumbai, you would see luxury right from the moment you are stepping in. Right, that's what makes the brand different from maybe other brands. The same hold true for our suppliers as well. We'll get to know a lot about the company's culture by a simple mission statement homework, in case that is done by our buyers, right? So the homework or the research to know your supplier, I think, is an excellent foundation to build upon that long-term relationship. The second important R now would be the word relationship itself. Now this particular word relationship, I think most of us have already touched upon this, is that it does not mean a transactional business negotiation, which we need to do from time to time, right? Just as any other relationship, you need to nurture that thing. You need to have informal conversations with suppliers to understand what are their expansion plans, what are the challenges that they are facing in their day-to-day life. We can very well define the frequency. How do we want to do it? Do we want to have annual supplier events wherein we would invite them and also let them know not just about their own performance, but what are our own growth plans and expansion plans, so that they are aware that we are in it together. It's not just a one-way partnership. Both these parties, that is the company as well as the supplier, need to bring in together and have mutually win-win conversations to have profitable relationship throughout. The third important R, I think, that I would touch upon is a combination of two, which is risk assessment and resilience. A couple of my fellow panelists have already touched upon this topic, but why don't you think it's ironical that at one point in time we are saying collaboration and at other point in time we are saying risk assessment, right? But we should all be aware that we cannot put all our eggs in one basket. No matter how excellent is your collaboration with supplier, at the end of the day, it's not a marriage, right, that you need to live with it throughout. You need to think through and have your options in place. You need to have proper risk assessment, not just from financial aspect, but in case it's a geographically driven supplier or a global supplier, you never know when the geopolitical situation demands and you maybe have to look out for a local source. So this is the reason I put resilience along with risk assessment, because as buyers, we need to be flexible enough and adapt to the situation, because you would agree, whenever there is a crisis, at the end of the day, we are also doctors for our stakeholders, right, internally, because we need to give them the treatment, bringing in the material or the service at the right time. So I think some of these things, in case we typically do, I would all leave you with a thought. How many of you are you actually following all these 3 R's in your day-to-day life? And then only you can decide how progressive we actually are by understanding our supplier's culture and our own culture to actually give the output of a collaboration that is required.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe I'll move to Aurobindo quickly, and if you can just help us to understand that every collaboration work on 3 fundamental principles, which is logic, culture, and commitment. How do you see this infrastructure industry, where you're coming from? Like, he works for GSW Cement industry. So how this industry is mature enough, because we always see the home buyers that make you and cry. So where all the logic, culture, and commitment goes?
Yeah, thanks. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the beautiful question. I mean, basically, I come from a very manufacturing industry, was in steel, now in cement, all of it. So, typically, the cement industry works like we have a capacity of around 600 million ton cement production in India, and the Pareto theory works over here as well. 80% of the production comes from typically the 20% of guys. So, 20% of the industry has the 80% volumes that's playing around in India. So they have you have small players as well in this industry, but at the same time, the big players has a say. Now, this is how the industry behaves. Typically, when I was listening to one of the panel members in the previous discussion, the most important point and the most beautiful point that I found out is when we start calling our partners, our suppliers as partners, really do we mean it? I mean, we can be very much clear on our books. I mean, I don't know how many of these guys or how many guys sitting over here would address our SAP system or system saying that it's a supplier management or a vendor management system other than a partner management system. So when we talk about partners, we have to really be clear that we are really treating them as partners. Now, when we talk about this COVID, as many guys have already pointed out, COVID has taught us many things. Now, out of this, one of the very vital point is the importance of the supplier in our process, in our business. We are as good as our suppliers. I mean, when during the top COVID period, I'll cite with a small example. The point is when we had one of the unit at we have one of the unit at West Bengal where during the COVID period wanted to do some production, but then the logistics was such a constraint over there that we were not able to start our production at all, and then the orders were also not there in place. And what we did is we tried to find out what best we can do to understand that how the manpower comes in, how do we do the logistics for the manpower and run our industry. Fortunate enough, we have a labor colony, place over here. And what we started is, we started to understand what's the pain points of the supply. They said, sir, we can get the manpower over here, but the logistics is a tough point, and we do not have that kind of infrastructure that we can support them. At that point of time, our management supported us, and then what we did is we got that manpower inside our premises, and we took care of all the nitty-gritties that they need to have along with their families and addressed them, and toward the COVID period they were there. There were times where we didn't have the order, and there were more of a times than when we used to spend a lot of money on that, lot of expenses on that, but then there was a humanity down to it. We understood that our business would grow up after some time, and then, believe me, after that, the kind of efficiency we got it from that kind of manpower management is fantabulous. I mean, in my 2 decades of career, I have never seen that kind of collaboration. So, why I went to leading is you need to get into the supplier's shoe and understand what's their problem and address the problem at that very point, which might be as an industry point of view we are not doing. The second point that I might like to mention is the collaboration between the competition. Suppliers might not be equipped to have that kind of leverage if the competition can collaborate. For example, if we need to have one shipment with a particular supplier, can go to a competition and say that, okay, let us bring down our cost, let us go to the common supplier, let us have a common supplier in place, and get all the stuffs, let's have a big size of the shipment so that we save in cost. The suppliers also get a part of it. And this is how the industry, the onus remains, that I told, the onus remains with this 80% guys, the 80% volume originating guys to collaborate and see how we come out of our individual silos, and competition supports the supplier to grow up. And so as such, the industry goes up. Grows up at...
Thank you. So maybe in the best time interest, maybe I need a quick input, Subhash, from you, because we are looking at the watch also and want to give back some time to the audience as well. That you coming from a heavy industry, WAMGROUP, and I know the innovation and supplier collaboration is key to ensure the service level quality, technology or in context to cost, etc. So how do you see these drive maximum value in your heavy industry? Like,
thanks, Aditya. I will make it very quick because we are told that we are running short of time, right? So collaboration, I think we all have talked about a lot. So it is nothing but seller and the buyer and the seller both working together in synergy. So it has to make 1 + 1 11. So that's what is the philosophy. We can collaborate with the supplier and innovate in 4 P's actually: product, process, paradigm, and position. So just to make the thing little clear and more crisp, I will just tell you a story which actually I have lived for last 6.5 years. In 2017, Government of India, they decided to ban IE1 motors for energy efficient, after the study of energy efficiency actually. So they banned IE1 motors, so that time we were buying IE1 motors from China. Also they made a clause that for importing any I2 motors from anywhere in the world, you need to have BIS certification. So we were left out with no option actually. So we started scouting for suppliers who were in our country. So we got quotations from ABB, Siemens, Bharat Bijli, Crompton Greaves, Lakshmi Hydraulics, HEM, Hindustan Electric Motors, HEM. So finally we narrowed down to HEM motors. So there all the synergy started actually. So with our contract with HEM, actually we gained 2 things. First of all, they were one of the biggest manufacturers in India, and also they were very good in terms of pricing. So when we started working with them and we developed the motors in our nameplate, so the motors went to market in our nameplate, in WAM's nameplate. So the customers, they were more happy to see the Italian branded company also supplying motors along with the product to them. So it also enhanced the value for HEM, and at the same time our customer satisfaction went very high, because HEM was having around 57 service stations in India, and any problem and they catered within 24 hours. So with this collaboration, you see the customer satisfaction of my company went up, the credibility of HEM went up. So it was a win-win situation. And finally, the service time, the service resolution was so quick that the customer was very, very satisfied in terms of service SLAs. So this collaboration has brought us actually sustainability, which is the buzzword today. So I think that was a story which I have lived, and which talks volumes about the collaboration.
Thank you, Subhash. Maybe moving to Sudipto, and you're coming from a
pharmaceutical background.
Okay. So today companies engage in shared R&D and do jointly clinical trials and many other services together, and unlock some kind of innovation at a competitive price. But do you see India is doing enough in that particular culture or a collaborative approach? Or unlike, I hear this approach is much more prevalent in China, where people engage and leverage each other capability. How your industry, whether it's pharma or animal healthcare, they are doing in this segment?
So thank you, Aditya, for the question. So yes, I think the question is absolutely right. If we see India, in terms of pharmaceutical R&D and clinical trial spend, in India we spend only 1.2% of the total worldwide spend, though we have 18 to 20% of the disease load. Which means, yes, your question is right. And also, if you see the number of patents which are getting filed in India, it is growing. Good news is there, I'll come to it. But then obviously we are still evolving. Now when we talk about R&D, as you mentioned in the question, I think cost probably is not the first thing which comes into the mind. Because when you talk about R&D innovation, I think the first important thing is that how stringent are the IP laws and how stringent are the regulations. And second most important thing, how strong is the supplier collaboration in the industry or the country? Because when you are doing a R&D, when you are doing an innovation, it is very important to have those legal compliances in place to ensure that your supplier don't misuse the data. And at the same time, from the supplier's point of view also, or let's say the CRO or the manufacturing unit who is developing the R&D and the innovative products for you, whether they will also reap the benefit of the innovated products in the near to the long-term future. And that is where I think India needs to work as a country, as an industry. Yes, over the last few years, because of Make in India and Innovate in India, you can see a lot of traction is happening in the pharmaceutical space. Various different companies are acquiring production unit, which means the number of orders for R&D innovation is more. Moving on from the pharmaceutical industry, yes, India does a lot of innovation. Even as simple as the UPI was innovation in India. Yes, it might not have been discovered in India, but the scale in which we have evolved or which we have been able to deploy. Similarly, the example of our moon mission as well. In India, yes, innovation is there, but the innovation R&D we talk in manufacturing, where India will start churning out new products, new developed products, that is the stage where it is yet to come. And the level of supplier collaboration in an industry, in a nation, is understood by the strength of its R&D. So that is something where the country and the industry needs to move forward a lot.
Thanks, Sudipto. Moving to Mahendra. Mahendra, you're coming from a chemical industry, Henkel, and maybe you can help me to understand. Huh?
Chemical and FMCG, both.
Chemical and FMCGs. Okay, let me correct that. So, any business you're coming from, staying competitive is a survival strategy for any business.
Absolutely.
So, how do you see in your organization you leverage innovation with the suppliers to get to a competitive edge?
Yeah. So all the panel members have talked about supplier collaboration, and I echo the thoughts with each and everybody of them, okay, when it comes to supplier and supplier collaboration. So I will not dwell more upon the topics which has been discussed by the panelists, but I will more focus on innovation aspects of it, okay. I just wanted to raise a simple question to you as an audience, that how many of you are now currently using Maruti 800 as a car or a keypad phone? Maybe 1% or even not 1%, okay. And then there are mobile phones which are available 10 times or 100 times the cost of a keypad phone, and the cars which are 10 times or 100 times cost than that of a 5 lakh rupees car, okay. So what was the age at that, like 20 or 25 years ago? The age was different. Now we are living in an innovative age, wherein which everybody, like we suppliers, are running towards making the pie bigger, okay. And at the same time, innovation is a key aspects to it. When we are putting our customers at the forefront, okay, then we think about how can we make that pie bigger. And to make the pie bigger, innovation is the only solution. And innovation will not happen in a uniform way. It will happen from all the ways. The innovation will happen from our customers, the innovations will happen from our suppliers as well. So we as a procurement function needs to keep our eyes and ears open. And we need to be attentive towards the problem. There is a say that for any problem there is a solution. I can say that for any problem there is an innovation. If you have a space constraints, you can go for something which is innovative, which is reducing your space. If you have time constraints, you can check with your suppliers and how can he do a better in terms of time or reducing the time. Innovation is everywhere. Even if you go to the washrooms, the urinals are like zero water urinals, okay. So, and companies are ready to pay more for it, any innovation. You talk about space, you talk about time, and it's like, okay, I had a problem with my warehouse wherein which there was a space constraint. And then we checked internally, we checked with the supplier, and we came up with a solution of an ASRS racking system, okay. Whenever we are purchasing any kind of machineries, we stopped discussing about the approach of the cost of the machinery, but than that of that, TCO approach, a total cost of ownership, that whether the machineries, the plant and machineries which we are procuring, will they be serving us more for a longer period of time? Will they be cost efficient? Will they be energy efficient? At the same time, will they be relevant to our company's goal regarding sustainable future? We as Henkel have committed to the environment and making the, let's say, a carbon neutral company by 2030. So, like us, our suppliers, like us, our customers have also some kind of commitment, and people are ready to pay more for it. Okay? So, we need to tap all these kind of innovations so that we are not only a cost driven market, but we are going towards making the pie bigger.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Maybe taking the same thread of innovation, Kapil, I come to you from, you coming from automotive industry, that supplier innovation is often overlooked, not in the automotive industry at least, but less leveraged tool in procurement world. And how do you see this as an opportunity to solve business challenges as well as countering market and geographical disruptions which is coming in, how we can leverage those suppliers?
Yeah. Thanks. I'm audible? Yeah. So why the collaboration is needed? This is basically for the solving the business challenges. So I'll give you a couple of examples because we are running short of time. I'm coming out from 23 plus years in industry. So in supplier challenges, we have supply chain completely like source, make, deliver, and physical logistics. So we have collaborations with the various business partners in terms of the sourcing, in terms of production leveling, in terms of transportation management system, in terms of inventory management system, and how exactly you are doing, say example, spare part division. So how the productivity can be improved, how we can improve the customer satisfaction. So everything is coming from the what is the customer need, and based upon the customer need, we have drilled down and working together along with the business partners. So in the various streams of supply chain, we have done the business partner relationship in terms of spare part divisions, inventory management, and in you can see the couple of examples recently in the auto components industries where the semiconductors was a crucial problem. So in that case also, couple of supplier has been made as a business partner as a part of the narrow and reliable strategy of the OEMs, and then we have made the time-bound agreement, a sort of mutual understanding between both the business partner together, so that we can understand the market need and work together. So in short, you have to solve your business problems, and what exactly you are doing with the business partner, it is a basically mutual understanding. It's a win-win strategy, how we can put it together and work as a common goal. So this was done very religiously in the various automobile industries. Examples are with us.
Thank you, Kapil. And I think let me sum it up this way, that the discussion topic of collaboration, that a very simple way, let's say if we imagine that all the resources of know-how, process, system of our supplier is available with you, what kind of power we are going to leverage. So with that note, I think I'll thank you everyone for your inputs. Thank you.
You have time for a question?
No, not at all. All right, thank you so much, sir, for this insightful panel discussion. Thank you, all our speakers. Now, I would like to request our moderator, sir, to kindly present the token of thanks to all our speakers and panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you this token of thanks is by Kamikaze B2B Media and Wellspun One Logistics Parks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please, all of us together, let's give a big round of applause to all our speakers for speaking wholeheartedly about the topic. Thank you so very much once again. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So I'm sure you must be having a lot of questions. So after this, we are having a tea break. Our speakers will be there. So please catch hold of them and you can ask your questions there.
Thanks, Mahendra. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Amit sir, now I'd like to request you to present this token of thanks to Aditya sir. Once again, many thanks to Aditya sir for conducting this impeccable panel discussion. I know that all of them were wanting to listen more, but we had the time constraint. So on that note, we are done with this panel discussion.